Hello, everyone. Lee Henson here, president and founder of AgileDad. I'm so glad you could be here with me today. Today, we're going to discuss helping your business grow, the concept of goals, reality, opportunities, and will. This is an exciting presentation. It's one that I've been itching to share. It's a brand new presentation, and I hope you enjoy it. I think the leading question that we need to ask is, how do we become innovative disruptors? How do we change the way that people work? How do we change the way that people think? How do we adjust our mindset so that we're prepared to do Agile in a way that makes sense to businesses and in a way that helps us to both grow personally and help us as a productive citizen within our organization? And I think that all starts with the question, how can we change from having a fixed mindset to a growth mindset? Now, this question has been one that's dominated for a very long time, both in the Agile workspace and outside of the Agile workspace, in the psychology workspace. So I thought it'd be helpful for us to kind of get our head around what makes fixed versus growth. So throughout the presentation, you're going to see some large, how shall I put it, motivational posters, if you will. These are provided both as an asset for you to go back and reflect on the topic, and they should be used as a way for you to just have a mechanism to understand or to better understand where you are in your mindset. And I challenge you with this very first question. When you consider failure, which was my topic last year at the conference, do you consider failure as the limit of my abilities or my inability to do something? Or do you look at failure as an opportunity to grow, an opportunity to move forward, an opportunity to take steps and to move in a good direction? And I think it starts by telling yourself a different story. Now, when you come across a difficult challenge, a lot of times it's the story of, I tried, I gave it my all, I did my best, and I'm just not good enough, or I don't have the tools that I need to succeed, or I haven't been trained well enough to do something, or somebody else caused me to not be able to complete what I should have completed. The truth is, how you react is strictly based on your own story. Now, I remember a very specific incident when I was with my two boys, and they were younger, and they had a disagreement. And one of them got really upset and stormed off. And I went over and I started talking to him, and I said, "Now, why are you angry?" And he says, "Because my brother made me feel this way." And I asked him, I said, "Is that even possible?" He says, "What do you mean?" I said, "Can someone make you feel a certain way? Or did something happen and you choose to feel that way?" And I think that our actions are a manifestation of our beliefs. If we believe that someone wronged us, then someone wronged us, and that's how we're going to react. But if we look at it and say, wow, that person did something that caused me to feel a certain way or to have a certain emotion, you can ask yourself, do I want to feel that way? Do I need to feel that way? Is that what's going to be best for me right now? And I think that you need to look at it as, am I going to be stuck in a rut and let this harbor on me and let me feel bad about what happened? Or am I going to enable a growth mindset and catch myself in the moment and make a good choice and stand by my decision, right? So fixed mindset is often based on a bias that others have elected to see about us and not on what we truly believe about ourselves. So I guess the key here is, when it comes down to your talents, when it comes down to the things that you're trying to do, when it comes down to growth, the more you limit yourself, the more you're going to be limited. So I challenge you to not underestimate your skills, your strengths, the things that you know how to do. Strive to do more and better than you ever have before. And when you do, you're going to see a real good shift in the way that you start to think and the way that you start to treat things. One example of a fixed versus growth mindset, and this is one of those examples of the motivational poster that you can blow up later, is that a fixed mindset leads to a desire to look smart and therefore a tendency to do all kinds of amazing things like avoid challenges. Yuck, right? You give up easily when faced with obstacles. You're like, I don't know what to do. You see effort as fruitless or worse, you ignore criticism. and you focus on negative feedback, but you ignore useful negative feedback, right? You feel threatened by the success of others. You know, all this confirms a really deterministic view of the world, and as a result, the plateau happens early and you achieve way less than your full potential. Where if you have a growth mindset, you look at it and you say, intelligence can still be developed. I still have a way to grow, right? I still have a long way to go. And it leads to a desire to learn, right? And therefore, that gives you a tendency to embrace challenges, to persist in the face of obstacles and setbacks, to see effort as a path to mastery, to learn from criticism, and to find lessons and inspiration in the success that others have, instead of looking at their success as your failure. I think it's also critical for you to have a great sense of free will. And as a result, you'll achieve even higher results than what you anticipated. So this is just one of these things where you need to get that balance. And it sounds great on paper, but Lee, that begs the question, how? You know, what steps do I need to take? How do I get there? How do I manage? How do I govern? How do I achieve this state of wisdom? And I think the first step is for you to set proper learning goals. Now, when I say set proper learning goals, I'm talking about making a commitment to yourself that every single day you're going to learn something, that you're going to focus on learning, that you're not going to go into a day and say, I know everything, or this is a topic that I know everything about. The more you learn, the more you grow. And I think you need to focus on the process that leads to the desired outcome. Now, sometimes that process can be a framework because there might be a monkey wrench thrown in, or we may need to pivot or adjust. But I think it's just looking for those continuous small improvements that add up over time. You know, you want to make sure you choose a path where hard work, effort, deliberate practice, and persistence are your guide, and they lead you to a way to be successful. I think one thing that you have to remember, though, is that this isn't an overnight process. I've been on a journey for some time now to lose weight, and I've lost 35 plus pounds, which is great. But the problem is I still have a long way to go. And if I looked at it and I said, wow, I've lost 35 pounds, I've done the best I can, I could never continue on that journey. Or if I looked at it and said, I've only lost 35 pounds, I've got 100 to go, I'm never going to get there, right? You need to look at it and say, slow and steady. Success doesn't happen overnight. Things don't happen to you. You can make magnificent changes in your life, but in order to do so, you have to pave your way with a crystal clear vision of where you're trying to go. You have to have a clear understanding and a clear vision of what you're trying to do and how you're going to get there. And I think that's the key. So if I look at it from this perspective, I say a fixed mindset says, with regard to skills and intelligence, a fixed mindset says, you know, you have what you have, right? You're all set. A growth mindset says, my skills and intelligence can be grown and developed. My main concern when I'm in a fixed mindset is how I look and performance focus. A growth mindset leads to learning and getting better, process focus. And I think that you see where I'm going here. It's just, if you use this kind of chart as a metric, and once again, this is another one of those posters that you can print and hang up, this is going to help us get our head around how we can achieve a growth mindset, how we can persevere, how we can use feedback to learn, how we can treat mistakes as a learning opportunity. These are all things that are important. The next topic is a direct takeaway from the topic that I covered just a year ago. It's important for us to capitalize on our failures. Even when you're not sure which way to turn, even when you don't have a crystal clear direction, it's important for you to recognize that failure isn't just a mechanism to make you less than what you are. Failure is the refiner's fire, and it's a way for you to learn. So if you capitalize on your failures and you learn to innovate, that's what's going to bring you to greatest success. You know, I remember working with a couple of different Fortune 100 CEOs, and one of the things that they told me was that failure teaches you valuable lessons that success just can't teach you. If you never have a failure, if you have very few failures and they're far between, what ends up happening is you don't know how to grow. I remember on an episode of Shark Tank from season 11, there was a young man who was making a shampoo, and it went inside of, it was originally a little ball, right? So it was a shampoo ball. And the way it worked was much like a bath bomb. So what would happen is you'd get it moist, it would dissolve into a shampoo and you could use it. It was biodegradable, natural products. It was a great idea. He got support from Mark Cuban, and that product was on its way to success. However, what quickly happened was there was a lot of disappointed people. The product itself would fall apart or arrive broken, and people were getting frustrated. It didn't work exactly as they hoped it would work, and people were just, you know, leaving very negative remarks and feedbacks. And this young man was only 16 years old who invented this. He was so frustrated. He was simply at his wit's end and he was ready to give up until he decided. One morning, he just woke up and decided, I've got to do this, and I've got to do this for the right reasons. And he came through and he ended up making something that was very similar to a Tide pack with a water soluble covering, and that protected it so that it could be in a more gel type format, but it was still a very natural, single off, one time use, one pack, correct amount of shampoo, and it was biodegradable, worked with the environment, and he ended up making so much money and so much happiness over time within the people who were using his product that his feedback went from almost being completely negative to completely positive. And I think it's just, if you run away from that failure and you say, I can't do it, if he hadn't spent the 2.5 years with a chemist to come up with the right formula to figure out how it was going to work, he would have never made it to that point. And I think that's the key. The key is to take advantage of the failure. Don't run away from it. Review what you did. Learn from them. Capitalize on them. Figure out what you can change. Figure out what you can do better. Identify what didn't work. Identify what the problem was. Diligently seek out the root cause of why it didn't work. Break it down. Figure out a new way. Plan for course correction. Learn and grow from your failures. They shouldn't be regarded as limitations. You should simply focus and capitalize on those. And if you do that, I can guarantee that you'll have long-term success. But it's a matter of you gaining that focus and just really sinking your teeth into the grit of what made you fail to begin with. I think that if you have a growth mindset, it leads you to embrace change. Change is okay, right? Whether it's change in the way that you do things at work, or change in a way that you define done, or change in a way that you pivot on a product or service, or just change in your own personal life about the way you treat others. I think that change is a powerful tool. And I think those who come in and give their absolute best effort, they don't settle for that's good enough. They want to really sink their teeth in and do the absolute best that they can. And they learn from the feedback that they receive from others. Instead of regarding feedback as a negative tool, they regard feedback as a key or a token to achieve success. They're inspired by other success and get excited when they see other people be successful. And they finally believe hard work will improve their intelligence. They believe that if they work hard, that they're going to get smarter. And I think that, a lot of people say work smarter, not harder. But I believe if you don't work smart, or if you don't work hard, you'll never get to the point where you're able to work smart. So I think it's kind of like the chicken and the egg. I think you have to work hard first in order to learn how to work smart. And I think that once you get to that point, that's when you'll start seeing this achievable, amazing, wonderful success. This is a very dear friend of mine. I've had an opportunity to do a lot of presentations with her and be at conferences where Bree has spoken. And what I can tell you is that her story is absolutely amazing. But outside of her story, one of the things that she taught me was a concept called meet me in the middle. And, a lot of people will call this the Goldilocks concept, right? You don't want something that's too hot or too cold. You want something that's just right. You don't want something that's too big or too small. You want something that's just right. And I think that, when you recognize that each individual is a person of great worth and power, in this case, I can tell you right now that Bree blows my mind. She is quite possibly one of the most powerful, strong, immense, motivational, inspirational women I've ever met in my entire life. And what I can tell you is that if you set pragmatic, achievable goals, then you're going to understand and get your head around better how you can create an environment where you can be successful. And I think part of that is, there's a huge difference. You have to understand there's a huge difference between seeking challenges and attempting to do the impractical. I've seen so many people who completely attempt to do the impractical where they don't have the means to do it, or they don't have the skills to do it, or they don't have the wherewithal, or the support, or the cast, or the knowledge, or the inspiration to do it. I'm not saying don't go out and tackle the world. I'm not saying don't go out and seize the day. I'm not saying don't shoot for high-level goals. What I am saying is that if you figure out what your level is and focus just a little above that level, just take it up a notch, that's going to give you an opportunity to step outside your comfort zone without leading to severe anxiety or stress or depression. And I think a lot of PTSD and ADD and diagnosed ADHD has to do with people who are stepping so far outside of their comfort zone that they're bringing stress upon themselves, that they're causing themselves to feel a world of anxiety. If you just figure out where your skill level is and say, what can I do to take it up from a 4 to a 5? We all want to crank it to 11, but sometimes that just isn't the answer. Sometimes we have to just notch it up from a 4 to a 5. Give it a little burst, give it a little bit of speed, and see where that takes us. And I think that leads us to setting a clear path. You can only achieve continuous improvement by slowly building on your current capabilities. If you recognize what capabilities you have now, and you just build step by step, line by line, and line upon line, you just keep building that path, that's going to bring you to most success. That's what's going to help you really achieve your goals. That's what's going to help you break that glass ceiling. That's what's going to help you get to where you need to be. I also think that if you look at everything holistically with regard to being pragmatic in your approach to success and being practical, the goal here is to celebrate your success and make sure that you're not stretching so far that you're giving yourself headaches. I call this achieve, not leave. And I know it's a silly name, but if you celebrate your achievements and focus on the things that you do well and get a good understanding of where you are, I think that you can really understand success better instead of learning more about what naproxen sodium is. The other key that I wanted to show you on this slide, and I thought this was really cool, is that if you look at the fixed mindset and the growth mindset puzzle pieces in the imagery, they're the same size. They're not trying to say that the growth mindset requires a bunch more additional stuff or that the fixed mindset is a much bigger, either way. The growth mindset can fit right inside where that fixed mindset is. You don't need to make huge astronomical changes to get there. It's focusing on the small changes that you can do, right? I saw this imagery and I thought it was beautiful. A growth mindset is freedom. Persevere in the face of failures. Effort is required to build new skills. Find inspiration and other success. Embrace challenges. Accept criticism. Desire to learn. Build abilities. A fixed mindset is limiting. Avoid challenges. You give up easily. You're threatened by other success. Your desire is to look smart. Your effort is fruitless. You shouldn't have a whole lot of effort there. You ignore feedback from others, and you have very fixed abilities. I think that this is a real good visual representation of maybe where some of us are and where we're trying to go, right? So I think it gives you just a clear visual representation. And I wanted to make sure I had a bunch of that included in this presentation. The next step that's critical to helping yourself grow and your business grow is to be consistent and flexible. So what do I mean by this? Well, it takes more than a day or two to make a change stick, right? Growth mindset requires practice. It's not something you're just going to come right out and do. You need to exercise your mind. You need to make choices frequently. You need to practice focusing on growth. You need to make sure you're taking time to learn from past behaviors that may not have been in line with what you're trying to do. You need to learn the concept of introspective and learn from your own personal past experience, just like you would expect a team to leverage a retrospective to learn from their past experiences in a previous sprint. You want to make sure that you understand what an introspective is, how to do one, and what value it's going to provide. In addition, you want to be consistent in your decisions. Ask yourself interview style questions to diagnose whether the decision comes from a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. You need to understand, am I making the right choice? Is this what's going to be best for me, my family, or my workers in the long run? How is this going to impact myself or the organization? Ask yourself those questions, but be consistent in your decisions. The big takeaway here is that all humans are unique. What works for one person might not work for another person. I had a very dear friend who strongly recommended, he says, the only way you're going to lose weight is to get gastric bypass surgery. You'll lose all the weight fast. He says, never mind the fact that you can drink an ounce of liquid fluid at a time, and never anything carbonated, never this, never that. He goes, but boy, you'll feel better because you'll lose all this weight. I had another friend, when they heard I was on a weight loss journey, come up to me and say, Weight Watchers is the way to go because that's the way you're going to lose the most weight. I had someone else say, if you don't buy the pre-packaged meals in the mail, you're never going to be successful. Not to mention the countless number of people who came up to me from those multi-level marketing, hey, I've got a shake you can drink or a vitamin you can take, or take one sip of this before you go to bed and poof, magic, The truth is, what works for one person isn't going to work for another. And it's not going to work without hard work. If you're not putting in the work and you're not putting in the effort and you're not adjusting your diet, you might have some luck and lose a little bit of weight, but it's not going to be something that's going to stay with you. You need to remain consistent and flexible in your approach, and you need to develop a growth mindset. So how do we promote a growth mindset? How do we develop a growth mindset? How do we get there? I think that part of it is following some key practices and making sure we understand where we are in our lives. So right out of the gate, don't praise intelligence. Intelligence is something that is either inherited or learned, right? So yeah, when people are bright, that's a good thing. But I don't want you to just go in and say, oh, well, they're smarter than I am. They're so smart, that's great. But why can't you be smart about making those decisions too? Why can't you figure out and have the same learning experiences? I really believe that the majority of intelligence comes from learning based on the decisions that you make in your life. I think it's just so critical for us to focus on outcome and, stop focus on output and really just get a better understanding of where we are. Recognize and appreciate that process, frameworks, engagement, strategy, perseverance, and progress matter. Those are the things that indicate growth. Intelligence doesn't indicate growth. Those are the things that indicate growth. One of my favorites in the entire presentation is do not engage in false praise. I can't tell you how many times you hear me say how much I, hate's a harsh word. I hate using that word. No pun intended. Yeah, pun intended. But I hate the concept of a participation trophy. Congratulations, here's a participation trophy. I distinctly remember, I'll never forget this. I remember my kids were playing a soccer game, and I was running behind. I was at an engagement, and I missed my flight, and I ended up having to stay overnight, and I got an early flight out, and I was driving as fast as I could from the airport within the legal speed limits to get to the destination where my kids were playing soccer that day. And when I got there, I ran to the side of the field. I had arrived late, and I turned to a young lady who was standing there, and I said, so tell me, who's winning the game? And she looked at me with a big smile on her face, and she said, all the kids are winning. They're playing so wonderful together. And I just sat here and went, I turned to one of my friends and I said, hey, Kay, who's winning? He says, oh, hey, Lee. He says, we're up by 6. So I turned back to this young lady. And, at this point, I was a little frustrated and probably shouldn't have done this, but I'm sure it won't surprise you. I looked her square in the eye and I said, it's okay that your children are losers because they did not practice hard enough and they did not score enough goals to win the game. And they're not going to get sprinkles on their ice cream. They can get ice cream but no sprinkles because sprinkles are for winners and your kids are losers. Therefore, they're not going to get sprinkles because there's no way they're going to catch up being down by that many goals. Your kids are just losers. And that's all we have to face. And we're good with that. So next week, they'll practice harder and maybe they'll win a match. Maybe they'll win a game. Okay. That might have been a little harsh, right? It might have been a little brash. But surprise, that also might be me. My point is, and I know it sounds so funny, Participation trophies should never exist, right? Disappointment, being a little frustrated, having that little bit of anger, that little bit of burn inside of our bosom, that's what drives us to be better. That's what drives us to find new strategies and solutions. That's what drives us to find a better way to solve problems. If we walk through life every single day like we're getting a participation trophy, we're never going to be successful. If we're in organizations where everyone's there saying, we're here to do the best we can, and we're all in this together, no, you have to get out there and say, what am I going to do to separate myself from the pack? What am I going to do to uplift the rest of the pack to make them work harder? What am I going to do to get a launch, to just spread myself out a little bit, to really make a huge impact and a huge difference to the organization and to myself, so I can uplift myself, so I can bring myself to a higher state, so that I can increase my emotional capacity and so that I can be a better contributor. I think all those things are important. I think it's also important that on the flip side, we establish that vulnerability is not a sign of weakness, right? I think a lot of times when we put ourselves in a position where we're vulnerable, people like to kick us while we're down. And I think we don't like to put ourselves in that position because we feel like we might be portraying that we are weaker than everyone else, or that we're not as good, or that we couldn't achieve certain things. And that's not right either. So I feel like we need to look at vulnerability as a powerful tool to help others realize their fullest potential. If we put ourselves in a position where we're vulnerable and we tell people about it, and we talk about it, and we're open about it, people can really thrive. In the very beginning, well, not the very beginning, but a little bit ago, I introduced you to my friend Bree. She was in probably one of the most vulnerable positions. Someone had tried to kill her and do terrible things to her, and she didn't let them see that as a sign of weakness. In fact, she turned it around and used it as a tool to realize her fullest potential to be able to help others, and was able to fight like girls. So there's so many things that you can do to make a difference, but you need to let your vulnerability build you. You need to look at it as a refiner's fire. You need to look at it as, how am I going to make a better product or service? How am I going to build on who I am as a person? How am I going to build my organization? How am I going to achieve this really, truly growth mindset? What does that mean to me? And I think that if we're doing this, that we're focused on encouraging using the right choice of words. And I know that sounds weird right after I just talked about not being a snowflake, but believing that something is achievable will open your mind up to find an innovative solution. When I say the right choice of words, I don't want you to focus on what you can't do. I do want you to say, these aren't good options, but I don't want you to sit here and say, I can't do this. I can't do that. I haven't been trained to do this, or I don't know which step to take next. I mean, it's okay to not know, right? Don't get me wrong, but I'd rather you say, where can I go to learn more so that I can be successful and help others be successful? How can I leverage this to get better focus? How can I, believe that this is achievable in some way if it really is? What steps can I take to move forward? And I think that if you do these things that we just now described, that's where the growth mindset's going to come from. That's where you're going to get this turbo, if you will, that's going to kick in, and it's going to help you really accelerate your learning and help you get to the point where you can really, really shift the way you think and shift the way you approach things. And this leads me to the concept of grow. What does grow really mean? Why did I choose grow for the topic of this? And I kind of talked about it a little bit in the beginning, but I want to talk a lot more about it because I think this is the key. So when we're talking about applying this in a real workspace, right? When we're talking about applying this within the context of our jobs, I think the first big question that I love to ask, and before I go there, let me tell you another little quick story. So I have an opportunity to work with a lot of leaders, a lot of executives. And oftentimes when they bring me in an organization, they'll often challenge me right away and say, we're not successful with this whole Agile thing. Agile's a broken thing, or our project management practices stink. We're not making the progress that we hope to make. We're not getting to where we need to be. And oftentimes I'll say, well, tell me, what is your goal? And when I ask them what their goal is, they say, well, our goal is to stop doing things that stink, to make and to make our processes better. And I'm like, that's not your real goal, right? What is your goal? And I think sometimes what I'm trying to say is even the most sensitive organizations that I go into don't have a clear understanding of their goal. They don't know what direction they're trying to head. They don't know the why behind the what. They don't understand why having a sincere goal and being able to draw on that goal for focus is important. Whether you're doing this in a retrospective with the team, what is our goal to help us ratchet it up a level? Whether I'm doing this with my kids, where I'm asking them, so tell me, what is your goal? What are you trying to achieve? Where do you want to be? What are you trying to do? Whether you're doing this with a team member, whether you're doing this with a friend, with a spouse, it's always the same. If you can focus on these 4 questions, starting with what is your goal, I think it's going to help you get a better understanding of what they're trying to do to achieve success. It's going to give you a greater breadth of what needs to be applied in order for them to be successful and in order for them to really get their head around what they could do to ratchet it up a notch, to get to the point where they are really just in the zone, in the wow zone, if you will, right? And that's where I want people to be. But then once they understand what their goal is and what they're trying to achieve and where they're trying to go, I then throw down a challenge gauntlet. I ask them, what's your reality? What is our reality now? Where are we? Where are you? How far away are you from that goal? Do you think that with minor adjustments we can get there? Or is this going to be a pivotal growth mindset change? How do we adjust? What do we need to, we need to be able to identify. First, we have to embrace where we are and understand that it may not even be close to where our goal is, right? We need to know that this is where we are today and it's okay, right? It's okay. The first step to building success or to changing to a growth mindset is to understand where you are right now. If you don't understand where you are right now, it's going to be really difficult for you to get to your goal. It's going to be difficult for you to get to where you're trying to be. So I think admitting where you are right now is obviously the first step. We need to face the fact that we're not all perfect. We need to face the fact that things are going to change. We need to face the fact that this is where we are now and be good with it, right? Then we need to ask ourselves, okay, so this is our goal. This is our reality. What options do we have to span the gap? What options are opportunities? I like that word even better. What opportunities do we have to grow? What opportunities do we have to be better? And be honest with your options. You have to have an open thought process, especially if you're doing this with teams. No voice should be understated. Let people, speak their opinion. Let people speak their mind. Let the creative juices flow. Because I think if you get open thought process here and you get a lot of ideas, the open thinking, what's going to happen is you're going to generate one or more really good opportunities or options that you have in order to gain that key that you're looking for, in order to reach that critical success, in order to get the balance to flow in your way, right? And finally, I always ask, what will you commit to do, right? And I know that's a hard question, but I'm like, yeah, we got a lot of great options. That's wonderful. So now, which one item will we commit to do first? It doesn't have to be the one that boils the ocean. It doesn't have to be the one that solves world hunger. It doesn't have to be the one that cures cancer or COVID. It needs to be the one thing that we can do that's going to make a difference. That's going to be the first step that we commit to do in order to commit to this change. So in order for us to get from that fixed mindset to a growth mindset, we need to commit to doing something about it. This is going to answer the question, what do we do first? What is our first change? And I think that is going to help you. So I can tell you now, I've used this in just about every level. It especially works well with executives. When you get them to focus on their goal, when you get them to understand their reality, when you get them to look at all the opportunities or options that they have, and then get them to focus and make a commitment on the one that they're going to start with to achieve success, that's going to put them in a place where they have a good pattern of recognition, a good way to go in order to really just have a launch pad, if you will, so that they can be successful in using the concept of grow. And I think this is the key to really get that mind shift going. And notice that this entire presentation is about changing the way you think. It's about changing the way you approach work. It's about changing culture. It's about shifting the way people think. And I think that if you can do this successfully, that's going to be the tool that's going to help you really get to growth. So there's only two real things you need to do when you leave here, two little pieces of homework. The first one is to ask yourself, are you ready? And I know it sounds so cliche, but are you ready? Are you ready for these changes? Are you ready to make organizational changes? Are you ready to have an organizational mind shift change? Are you ready to shift from having a fixed mindset to a growth mindset? Are you ready to embrace that the organization is going to fall before they can completely succeed? Are you ready to make sure that you understand a clear vision and strategy of what you're trying to achieve? Are you ready to embrace reality and make sure that you are happy with where you are and where you're going? Have you set realistic expectations? Have you set goals that are pragmatic and achievable? Have you set yourself up for success? And then finally, are you ready to grow? Are you ready to look at all the different options or opportunities? And will you make that commitment? Will you make the commitment to change? Will you make the commitment to accelerate? Will you make the commitment to focus? Will you make the commitment to openness? Will you make the commitment to be respectful? Will you make the commitment to commit, to fulfill the things that you say you're going to do? Will you make the commitment to have extreme courage and to focus on all the values that are going to help you achieve success in this realm? Are you going to use the force, right? Those are the questions that you need to ask yourself in order to be successful. It's your turn. What do I mean when I say it's your turn? It's your turn to make a difference. It's your turn to accelerate. It's your turn to put your foot on a gas pedal and push it as hard as you need to. Notice I didn't say slam it to the floor, because I don't want you to haphazardly wreck, but you need to determine what that right acceleration is and what that right pace is, and wherever it feels comfortable, wherever it feels achievable, just a little bit above your norm. That's where you need to be, and that's where you're going to find the keys and the tickets to be successful. I think the key here is, just like my weight loss journey, it's not all or nothing. It's not all at once. It's step by step, little by little, right? Build upon, build upon. And eventually I'll get to the point where, my arms will be bigger and my chest will be bigger and my waist will be smaller, but it's not something that's going to happen overnight. I need to be the innovative disruptor that's going to allow for these things to happen. It's going to cause change to really occur. That's going to upend and upheave some of the things that I would traditionally try to do, and find a path that's going to allow me to be successful. Find something that's going to give me the level of comfort that I need in order to continue to grow, so that I can continue to help organizations grow. And I think the key that ties this together is, if you can get your own mindset to change, then it's easy for you to show others through your shift how they can make adjustments and how they can pivot and how it can help the organization to be successful. Those are the key tenets to being a fantastic Agile coach, and the key tenets to helping you help your company become an innovative disruptor in the industry. This is what's going to help you grow. This is what's going to help you accelerate. So in review, just to make sure we got it all down. Number one, tell yourself a different story. Don't talk about the story of woe is me, pity and failure, I can't do it. Look at yourself as, look at where I've come from. Look at this background and look at where I'm heading. Set those clear learning goals. Make sure you understand exactly what you're trying to do. Don't fall off the tracks, but without goals, without clear learning objectives, you're not going to have any tracks to ride on. You need to make sure you have clear goals and objectives for what you're trying to do. And that's having a vision and a strategy to achieve the vision. Capitalize on your failures. Understand that failure isn't the end, it's the beginning. Fail is just an opportunity for us to try again. And I think that, it's not how many times you fall, it's how many times you get up that make a difference. And I think that if we capitalize on our failures and really look at them as an opportunity to be refined, an opportunity to do better, an opportunity to better achieve our goals, that's where we're going to lend to having the most success. That's where we're going to lend to really accelerating ourselves in the marketplace, as well as our organizations. the key is to be consistent and flexible. Make choices, but don't dwell that your choice is the only way. Be open to other options or opportunities, but also be consistent. Make a decision, make a choice. Don't just sit here and wonder, what if. You need to make some kind of decision that's going to drive you in a direction. And even if that direction is the wrong direction, you need to remember, there's only one thing that's worse than some direction, and that's no direction. And there's only one thing that's worse than no direction, and that's one direction. Terrible. Anyway, so I think it's also important for us to learn to use that grow model that we discussed so that we can be successful, so that we can become the model that people want to follow, and so that we can have all the tools that we need to succeed. Because what I can promise you is that if you as an individual grow, that you can help your family grow, your spouse grow, your peers grow, but most of all, you can help your organization grow. And I think that if you're trying to really lend yourself to be an innovative disruptor, to cause the marketplace to shift, to really show everybody that you have that wow that's needed to make a difference, you're going to need to leverage grow more than you could ever imagine. And I hope that you'll use this tool to help you accelerate that process and help you accelerate where you're going. Finally, I encourage you to visit AgileDad.com. We've got lots of free learning tools that are out there. We'd love for you to take advantage. We have videos, white papers, comic books, even a children's book on there. There's a podcast every day called the Daily Stand-Up Podcast, which is 15 minutes or less of the Agile tools that you need to be successful. Listen, put an ear on. I think it'll help you really regain the focus and put you in the mindset of where you need to be today. Once again, I encourage you to be an innovative disruptor. Find your way. Find a path that's going to make you successful. Find the things that are going to help you be a disruptor. Now, in a spirit of disruption and in a spirit of honesty, this video was recorded prior to the actual conference taking place so that if we had any kind of technical hiccups or difficulties, it will be a great opportunity for you to still receive the presentation from me, just in case for some reason we lost connection or something happened. We wanted to make sure that everything was pre-recorded. So since this is a pre-recording, it is happening before the big game day. Now, for those of you who know me and know me well, I was born and raised in Nolens, Louisiana. So if you ever hear me say, "Woo, chalaz les bâtons roulés," you know where that's coming from, right? But not to break the spirit, but to let you know I've been a lifelong fan. This isn't one of those things where I'm just hopping on a gravy train. I've been a fan since I wore bags on my head and bought $8 tickets to NFL games. In the spirit of fun and in the spirit of looking into the crystal ball to see what's going to happen, I just want to close with a couple of keywords for you. Who dat? Thanks a bunch, everybody. I appreciate you being here, and I look forward to seeing you again real soon, hopefully in person next time. This is me. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next time.